Hello world, it's Dave again, and this time got a video that's just going to answer a few questions from some emails that I got, which will be fun. It'll just be kind of a ramble because they're pretty open-ended questions. It's not a great deal about teaching itself, just kind of how did I end up here in Japan. Fantastic. In the first place, how did I arrive? So it's kind of two birds with one stone, because I thought that an email I received recently was kind of similar to the other that I hadn't responded to. So I'm responding to Mike and Will. So Mike was kind enough to write and ask, why did you choose to teach? Did you major in this in college, and kind of what drew you to teaching? There's sort of a play on words there, and what drew you to teaching, actually, which is kind of funny. That'll be a little inside joke that I will keep. So to answer the first question from Will, why did you choose to teach? It was because when I was really young, I had this very old friend, or when I was young, he wasn't an old friend yet, but he had for a large portion of my life been a really good friend of mine. And he, when I was 10 years old, went over to Japan, and I was young enough at that point that I kind of wondered, what was this crazy place that he had gone off to? When you're about 10 years old, the world carries within it a lot more magic than when you get older, or you have to try harder to find that magic when you're older. And so it was really kind of a mystical place that he went off to. And even at a very young age, I kind of became obsessed with the culture. I just found it fascinating. It doesn't take much looking at Japan to think that it's kind of beautiful, from the general the structure of their buildings to the I don't know, the lay of the land. Like, it's really beautiful with bamboo and everything like that. It's filled with whimsy, that kind of thing. So when he left, I got very interested in it. And I thought, one day I might like to come over here and just like follow his path and see what it was that he got up to. And eventually that led to me going to university, and I continued the interest at that point, where I studied a lot of Eastern history, actually more Chinese history than Japanese history, but a lot of Chinese history is Japanese history. Not a lot of there's a lot of sad stuff in there, sadly, but a lot of Eastern history that I studied. And then I ended up in this very serious relationship coming out of my my university career, whatever you want to call it, mess, fiasco. I was very much like, I was more, I took longer than Van Wilder to finish my degree, but I did. And I didn't major in teaching in school, to move to the next question. I majored in history, specifically Eastern history, not that it reads that on my degree, but that's the history that I took the most interest in, although I did a variety. And yeah, like I said, I got into this serious relationship, and when you're in a serious relationship, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to go jumping over the sea to go off and teach. So I kind of postponed that dream of coming over here, but eventually that relationship winded down, and, as can happen, it didn't work out in the end. There was no white picket fence, and I had this old friend who was in Japan initially, who'd kind of inspired the interest when I was young. And he said, there's tons of teaching jobs over there still. They're even advertising on Craigslist. So why don't you check it out and try to apply? I was like, that's a great idea. I could use a little kickstart in my life, post-relationship, and that was a dream. So it's never too late. It's never, ever too late. And so I pursued it, and I applied, and I went in for the job interview, and it took some time or whatever. And I was even delayed by a year because I didn't have the money to come over to be able to finance the transition. But the company, to their credit, said, not a huge deal, that's fine. If you're interested, you've passed all the other requirements that we have outlined. So if you want to just delay when you come over to be able to make the transition, that shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. And so I guess now, the final question that I just read in that email was, what drew me to teaching was initially my friends. So what drew me to teaching was Japan. So Japan was interesting, and then I thought, how do I get to Japan eventually? And teaching, for me, just seemed like a really, really practical thing. That's a great way to get over here. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and it's well, not every minute of it. I've enjoyed a lot of it. It's been an incredible thing to do, and I can't imagine my life without it now. So That's pretty good. I managed to put that into 5 minutes, so why did I choose to teach? Well, I had this interest in Japan. Did I major it in college? No, I didn't, but I did have kind of the Eastern, studies background, so I was not totally unfamiliar with the culture, and then what drew me to it, you can see how everything crosses over at that point. So that's to answer Mike's questions there, more or less. And then we go on to Will here, who has been kind enough to write as well. And Will says, what did you do before applying to teach in English in Japan? Did you, like I am at the moment, have a bit of a confusing moment in what path to go down in terms of career aspects? Also, how long have you taught in Japan for, and how long can an individual teach English in Japan in total? Lots of good questions there, kind of tying into this whole theme. What did I do beforehand? I did a lot of different stuff. When I was in that relationship, I was the manager, which is kind of funny. Like, if you see the devil's in the details, I managed a Rogers wireless cell phone store at University of British Columbia, and that sounds pretty impressive. But if you actually saw this store, it was like kind of the dimensions of a very, very, very large shoebox. And I was the only one in it, so I was managing myself. But it was kind of an interesting job. And before there were like big, brutal pay cuts for the year that I was there, I made a good income from it. I did pretty well. But it was difficult, because I worked alone. And if you know anything about working in hospitality or working with consumers, the general public are some of the most merciless, horrible people you can possibly imagine. That's not to say I didn't interact with tons of great people and that I didn't enjoy a lot of aspects of it. But it was a tough job, especially to do alone, with the fact that if somebody comes in and goes insane on you, then there's nobody even to turn to afterwards and go, wow, that was pretty intense, wasn't it? I just kind of had to sit there and take it. And, it's the kind of thing as well in that job where it doesn't even matter what you do to placate somebody. Somebody might have had a miserable day, and so when they come in, your ability to diffuse their anger is not going to, unless you're a god, you're not going to be able to pull it off. Their goal is to come in angry, and they want to take it out on somebody. But anybody knows this. Anybody who's worked in the service industry, who's worked in customer service, you realize that for every wonderful person, there's about 10 evil ones that walk through your door. But it was good. It was interesting. Something else that I did, which was a really, really big challenge, which I came out of university to do, was I met a buddy there who did tree planting. And tree planting is kind of the great Canadian pastime that you might go up and become a dirty hippie in the woods and plant trees. It's funny, there's a couple of videos on the internet, actually, that I think they've had some decent views where, like, it's funny, the irony, and like one of them is, so you want to be a teacher in Japan, and it's this little like animated guy who says basically to the person who wants to go that they're an absolute idiot, and for all the reasons that they think it will be fun, they've actually misunderstood everything, and it's going to be very, very difficult. And I kind of agree with that video. If you come over for the wrong reasons, it's true, except there's another video, I think, done by the same person who says, so you want to go tree planting, and it's the same kind of idea again, where it's like, you think it's going to be one thing, and it's another. Tree planting, I went in with my eyes open, and I knew it would be incredibly difficult, and the person who, great friend, suggested that I do it, who'd done it for many years, made me very aware of the fact that this is not a walk in the park. It's potentially one of the most it is the most labor-intensive job I've ever done in my entire life, but it was incredibly fulfilling. I actually even planted trees with my friend that, or was my friend. We've kind of parted ways at this point, which is sad, but life happens. And we planted together as well. He came out to do it. He was very good at it. But yeah, my record was I got 3,060 trees. I did that in one day within 8 hours. And this buddy that I went out with, who'd done it for a couple of years, he held like the West Coast record in 8 hours. He planted 6,680 trees. So, tie that one on and see how it feels. A really demanding job, and it's piecework, of course. So each tree that you plant, you're being paid for. So the more trees you plant, obviously, you're going to make more money. But in a rookie year, when you're learning so much of the technique of it, a lot of people think there would be no technique. It's just a tree in the ground. Actually, there's a massive amount of technique involved with it. It's very difficult in your first year to make a lot of money. I did that for 3 seasons before coming over to Japan. So that's something else that I did. And then just previous to coming over to Japan, I got into this real schwanky restaurant downtown in Vancouver, and I was a busser there. And a lot of people would be like, oh, a busser, you know, that's not that good. But just to give you a sense, the video's lagging, catch up. To give you a sense of the sort of restaurant it was, you know, there would be people who would walk out of there, and a server would have sold something like, you know, between $2,000 and $4,000 in one evening. And so when I've got, you know, 10 servers tipping me out a percentage of the amount on that, you know, $2,000 that they sold. I actually did quite good there, and I would have been interested to become a server there, but they said that I wasn't qualified, which is hilarious because I'd worked in management, I have a degree, but I was not fit to bring food to people's tables and take orders. I mean, I knew I needed to learn about wine and stuff like that, and I was trying to, but they didn't think so. So that was kind of like the nail in the coffin where I was like, I can't work in this restaurant and be told that. So I'm going to follow my dream. My buddy suggested that I try out Japan, and so that was kind of it. Those are the couple of jobs. I was a tree planter, I was a store manager, I was a busser, you know, a bunch of different stuff. As a God-cursed art student, you really have to find, you know, a niche for yourself. It's not just immediately available to you. Let's see. Also, how long have you taught in Japan? So by March, come this March, I'm going to have taught in Japan for 2 years, and I believe that will conclude the time that I've spent here. You know, I really like to analyze on my best days, you know, would I stay for a 3rd year? And I've even gone home on my break, and I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to stay for 3. So if any of my family actually watch this video, they'll be like, liar. But I, you know, getting back and stuff, going through the transition, I think 2 will be enough for me. I'd really like to make a sprint on the language here at the end to get better at the language, because I'd like that to be something that stays with me. It's been a great thing to involve myself with, but a steep slope. I always could have tried harder. Anyways, let's see. So how long have you taught in Japan? How long can an individual teach English in Japan for in total? Sky's the limit, really. If you're content with the job, like I've known guys here who have been here for 7 years, you know, and they keep teaching and they really enjoy it. They've married a lovely Japanese woman, have beautiful hybrid children, and it's a good lifestyle for them. So if you want to come over here and teach for all time eternal, that option is available to you. They're always going to need teachers. You can live frugally, and you can save money. You can live in some of the most incredible cities in the world. Don't live near Fukushima. That's a bad idea. So there's that. Okay, so I answered, when you, Will says here, did you, like I am at the moment, have a bit of a confusing moment in your path? And so, yeah, I definitely did. If you're, you know, listening closely to those stories about my work, then you realize that it definitely wasn't a straight path that led me to this place in my life, but it's a good one. I'm happy with it. How long have you taught? I answered that. And how long can an individual teach? So that's it. Yeah. Those are the answers. All right. Don't like the videos to run too much, so I'm going to continue to enjoy my delicious Asahi super dry beer. Then I'll leave you with that. So if you enjoy these videos, like, subscribe, share. That's what allows me to grow the channel, as an inspiration for me to continue making these videos. And until we meet again next time, world, thanks for tripping with Dave. Ciao for now. Peace. Follow me on Twitter.